Well, hello. Happy first day of February. Can you believe it? We're actually now like the second month of 2023. Time is flying by so fast. Happy Wednesday, friends, and thank you so much for joining us today. Greg obviously has some really fun news to share with you in just a moment. But for those of you who are new to the show, welcome to In the Loop with Winnie and Greg. And I am longtime financial pro Winnie's son, CNBC council member, and Forbes contributor and host also of Level Up, which can be found on NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, just to name a few. And of course, we're here live. So it's so fun to be back on our regular day. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's good to see everybody joining in. As always, so much fun to be here. We do have some good things to talk about, I think, here coming up. There was a big tech event today with Samsung. So I have Android news and Samsung news and even some computer news with that. We've got some other things to talk about with, I'm just going to tease it right now, Terminator 2 robots. I'll just leave that right there. So that's coming up to talk about as well. So all kinds of stuff. For those of you that don't know, I'm Greg Nibbler, longtime tech reporter covering all things in the world of tech and trying to really cover the cool and fun things, but a little bit of everything. We're also going to have a little talk maybe about Netflix. We all have to come to a realization here pretty soon. So we'll be covering that, but we're live. We can take your comments, your questions, whatever you want to drop in there. If you're watching afterwards, see some great things coming through right now. So, always let us know what you want to talk about, but that's part of the fun of the show is we get to be live with everybody and, have some fun and learn some things. And as always, we learn some things every time Winnie starts the show off, telling us about what's going on with finances and that entire crazy world. And I'm sure you've got some things to share with us.
It is a crazy world, Greg. You said it totally. And, on that note, yeah, we're streaming on almost a dozen different social media platforms. I'm going to say, and definitely put in your comments. We're going to be tracking them throughout the show. I see it, Dr. Lyra McIntosh joining us from LinkedIn. Thank you so much joining us from beautiful New Jersey. Welcome to the show. I see a lot of friends from all different platforms today, Greg. We have a busy day. And I know this, and some of our friends I know from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, chillier days than you are experiencing. But let's talk about something warm, and that is, well, today's financial markets and how we close. I'm actually really happy. I'm really happy, Greg, because the Dow closed up 6.92 points. But the area that I'm always really excited here is NASDAQ up 230 big ones today. We'll take it. Tech and biotech and healthcare and all that stuff. That's a lot in tech-heavy NASDAQ. I like to hear that. S&P 500 also up 42 points. A triple up day. We'll take it. The big news today, in case you didn't know, is that the Fed yet again has increased interest rates. They keep on doing this because they want to get inflation down to more manageable levels. I know those of you who've been shopping, buying groceries, and especially those of you who have talked to me online about the price of eggs. This is an area we definitely want those prices to come down a bit on inflation. So the Federal Reserve yet again increased borrowing costs for American consumers and businesses today. They raised the Fed fund rate by 25 basis points. Now, if you don't know what a basis point is, that's okay. That basically means 1/4%. Now, probably doesn't sound like a whole lot, right? But certainly a lower interest rate hike than previous rate hikes that we've had last year and most of 2022. But this is like the 8th consecutive hike. So what this does is it brings the Fed fund rate now to a range of 4.5 to 4.75%, which is the highest level since 2007, mind you. So what does that mean for us? That means that the increase is going to translate to higher monthly costs for new and variable rate mortgages if you're looking to purchase another home or even a car, and especially for those of you who may have credit card debt. This is not a good thing. Auto financing, I mentioned earlier, personal loans, if you're looking to get a new business loan, if you're just looking to borrow in general, it's just not a good thing because that means an increase in interest rates, even if it's just 1/4%, means that the payments that you owe will now be more. In fact, expect some of you even to see credit card interest rates climb to 19 to 20%, if not more. So the big picture is this. These hikes are going to affect the cost of borrowing and could have an even bigger effect on the economy. Are we going to be in a recession? Well, based on what we heard yesterday, and what we saw at the end of January, that based on history, this year could actually be pretty good, and that's something that I thought I would share with you. This could be pretty good. So, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said again that they anticipate more changes with interest rates later this year. The question, though, that many of us are watching the financial markets want to know is, well, now that the rates keep going higher, are we going to see rates go lower in 2023? And unfortunately, Powell says probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen anytime soon. Inflation is still an issue. We got to get price of eggs down, everything else down. So I don't know. That's that. But do know that this is the news that you really want to know. And the CrossX Fighter, I see you on YouTube live. Thank you, Joshua, for being here. It's always a treat to have you with us. Here's another story that Joshua and I know Greg definitely would love to get your insight on. And Dr. Leroy, if you're with us still, you're going to want to jump in on this because I want to hear your thoughts on this. This is an article that came off on BuzzFeed today. Brian Galindo shared this. Part of BuzzFeed's editorial staff saying that, many people are finding that the things that they normally buy have really just become too expensive. And they decided that because of the cost of living increases, that there's some things that they're okay with not buying. And this was kind of a fun article because it talked about all sorts of things, right? It wasn't just like vegetables and meat, but they're talking about pizza,
Right.
fast food, cereal, clothes. So I guess, Greg, that's the answer. The question is, have there been things that you used to buy, but now because you just feel like they're too expensive, you just don't buy as much anymore?
There's definitely things. I mean, everything at the grocery store is so much more expensive. It's just crazy. I mean, across the board. So yeah, I mean, there's probably some things specifically that I'm not grabbing like I used to. I think I'm doing more kind of just basic stuff. I mean, yeah, I haven't bought a frozen pizza in a while, and I did used to buy those. Those are like, I don't know, $9 or $10 for a frozen pizza seems like way too much to me. Like that's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of wild how much across the board it really is that everything's so expensive. So that makes sense that people are just cutting back on things.
They're cutting back, and it's really.
Yeah,
I just thought the article is actually pretty interesting. They're saying like instead of going to a Mexican restaurant having an expensive entree, they said they don't even go to Chipotle now. They just go Taco Bell because it's even less expensive, right? Well, I feel like that's the impact for so many people. I definitely
yeah,
find myself spending less money for sure. Clothing is one, and I feel
yeah,
like I'm buying a lot more raw materials to cook than before, right? Instead, like you said, like the pizza or an entree that was already done I could reheat.
yeah,
Well, I'm also feeding an army of 5. So,
yeah,
um, it's just like yeah, it's like even though you can afford it, like the cost of eggs was a good example. I saw this article on
hmm,
NPR talking about, well, yeah, eggs have gone up, 60 something percent because of eggflation, the avian flu. But is it really that much? Like most people could probably still afford eggs, but it's just like you just almost feel like guilty spending money on things
yeah,
that have increased in price, right? So,
right. Yeah,
um,
it's it's kind of nuts just thinking about that. I definitely have been cooking a lot more at home, not going out for dinners as much and things like that. I mean, so yeah, I think it's affecting everybody. Everybody's
that's
kind of cutting
affecting
back.
everybody. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming. Like, and speaking of like cutting back, can we just say? And I'm just gonna tease a little bit because I don't have the whole story on this. But one thing I read right before we jumped on too is, believe it or not, Amazon is expected to post its first like bad year since 2014, and
Wow.
that they actually could be unprofitable for once. So that's a story that's still unwinding. I'll keep everyone posted as we get more information on that. But I mean, if you're feeling like things are kind of tight in your household, I mean, if Amazon's even feeling
Yeah.
that way, I guess part of it wasn't that they weren't selling more stuff to us because we're still buying. Americans and just people all over the world are still spending a lot of stuff money on Amazon. But from what I hear, they've made some kind of bad business and investment decisions with their
Yeah.
own balance sheet. So that's kind of come into fruition too. So I think everybody is sort of looking at their balance sheet and looking at, that's why you see companies laying off more employees. Definitely a lot of households, like a lot of people aren't spending as much. We did a tweet chat today on travel, and people definitely said, definitely a lot more people doing like sort of day trips and road trips versus those big elaborate vacations that we heard about pre 2019.
Yeah.
But Greg, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about this because I know you and I kind of teased about this on our last show that we did about streaming, about Netflix, right? About how, many people have had Netflix subscriptions. And let's be honest, it hasn't been always like really cheap. And a lot of
Yeah.
families have shared it with each other or their friends. But they're going to crack down on passwords. I'm curious how that's going to work.
Yeah, so they released some information about that. So, we knew this was coming. They've been teasing it. They've been testing it. I think there's some other markets. I believe in South America, they were trying this out already. But now it is going to be on the way here. And it is the fact that you cannot share your password with other people. So here's how they're saying they're going to implement it. And I'm actually going to pull it up just because this is new to me as well. So what they're saying is you're going to have to set a primary location. So that's via your Wi-Fi. Is essentially how that would work, and your IP address. So you would set wherever that is, and you have to be logged into that place at least once every 31 days. And they're going to base that off of a television, according to what their report was of that signed in there. Now you can still go use Netflix other places, but it's going to start to get really tricky if it's not set up via that primary account. You may have to give permission to use it outside of that. And if if they feel that it's something that's not lined up with the same household, they'll block it. So you're really going to start seeing. So if you have a friend who is not in your household, who is signed in on their television at home, they're going to get blocked. It's going to be kicked off. Or if you're doing it and say you accidentally are logged into somebody else's Netflix account at your house, that's gonna, accidentally, it's gonna end up getting blocked, and they're gonna start tracking that and figuring out how to do it because for them, it's like the only way that they think they can grow because they're so saturated here, even though they keep raising the prices. But yeah, and I think so that's kind of how that's going to work. It's going to be based around your home Wi-Fi. There's some questions though still about this because if you think of somebody who's maybe you're just rarely at home and you're traveling a lot and you're using your iPad to watch Netflix. How is that going to work? There's some ways that you can apply for a temporary login for like 7 days to allow you to be away from home. But what if you're gone longer than that? I feel like there's still some questions to be worked out here on how that's all going to be implemented, but it's definitely going to be implemented. So it's coming. Your Netflix sharing of passwords days are starting to be numbered. And my guess is that this is just kind of the first one. I mean, just like Netflix was really the first big streamer, I think the other ones are going to follow suit most likely, but it might be a little while. They may see how Netflix shakes out here first and before they start implementing anything like that too, but it's happening.
It's happening. And what I thought was really interesting is like I traveled to Taiwan, I remember, and I had downloaded some shows that I wanted to watch. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, I need to download the next episodes, right? But actually, when I went to a different country, it actually blocked my access to the shows that I like to see here. I didn't know that like Netflix was dependent on where I physically was, like what my accessibility would be, right? So it was really interesting.
Yeah, because I think it's probably different licenses for different countries for whatever their content is. Like sometimes we'll have things, sometimes they'll have things, or vice versa. So yeah, it's they do track that as well. But it's they're gonna get really meticulous on this. So they're gonna know.
I thought they would like actually, how Greg, when you log on to certain things and they have that dual like thing where they text you, and so then you have like 2 minutes to answer, and so they can see that your phone is like, I don't know. I thought they would do something like that, but the Wi-Fi thing makes perfect sense. That'll be really interesting. But for people that travel a lot, right? Like I know, I just look at my Airbnb account. We've been to 4 different states in our last trips, right? And everywhere we would take our Netflix with you. How would that work?
Yeah, how are they going to handle that? What are they going to do about that? I don't know. Just like, I went to Amsterdam for that event in September. I watched Netflix while I was there and certainly while I was traveling. So is that just not going to be an option now because I'm clearly not at home when I'm using that? And they say that there's the temporary codes, but how long will they last? So yeah, there's still some more questions on it, but it's happening. It's going to be a little more difficult. So that's on the way. That's on the way for when they're going to start rolling that out. So there we go. Also, I think they raised.
Thank you for the update.
yeah. So I'm still learning on it too. So I think everybody's kind of has a lot of questions about how it happens. We just know that it is going to happen. So that's that. I do have some other tech news as well today that happened that I can
hear it.
All right. So we got Samsung today. So we have our first new phones of 2023. Came out today with Samsung with their Galaxy Unpacked event. So this is kind of kicking off new tech season. So we're going to see some new stuff here over the next few months. But this is Samsung's turn with that. So they had their big event showing the S23, S23 Plus, and the S23 Ultra. We knew those were the phones that were going to be showed, and these are their top of the line ones. So this is what they use to compete with the iPhones of the world, or the Google Pixels, or whoever else has the top end phones. And yeah, not a lot of huge surprises, I would say. It's not a tremendous change over the S22s. They're using some Qualcomm processing now that should give it some more advantages when it comes to cameras, because cameras was really kind of the focus on this. I think one of the big things was for the S23 Ultra, which is kind of like it's kind of like the follow-up to the Galaxy Note. If anybody was a fan of the Note, it's very big. It can use a stylus, and so people who like that kind of aspects to their phone want to use it more along those lines, then this is something that you would want to know. But the camera on that, they did add in a 200 megapixel camera on the back, which that's huge. That's ridiculously large. And most people probably aren't going to be taking a 200 megapixel picture, but what that means is they can combine pixels. And long story short, it brings out more detail and more light and more colors for a lot of things, because they can combine these pixels together. So they give a very good demonstration of it, kind of explaining how that works. So if you want to know the tech details on that, you can go check that out. But that's really what they're kind of focusing on with that. So yeah. Let's see. Sadiq saying it's too expensive. The $1,200 base model. Yeah, it's definitely expensive for the S23 Ultra, although we kind of expected that one to be, because that's, the top of the line, and then you can add more memory. You can get up there pretty high. The regular S23, I believe, is $699. So that's not too bad, starting off for the lower end one. I mean, that's still a lot of money, but when you compare top end phones, that's a little bit less than some other ones. So yeah, you can pre-order right now, taking a look there, and you can see kind of some of the colors as well. But yeah, so this is what the big thing was today. Again, there's some updates here. There's some cool stuff with it, but it's not like a huge game-changing type of update. I already have the S22 Plus, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on too much.
I was going to ask you that, Greg. I was like, so what does that mean, Greg? Are you picking? Hey, Greg, does Samsung have that program? Because Apple has that program where you can get a new phone every year. You can trade your phone in, and then you don't have to make the payment you don't have to pay for the whole thing. It's essentially like you're paying half and then you turn it in. Does Samsung have that too?
I don't know if Samsung has that in particular. I'm on T-Mobile, so there's a way to do that on there. So you got your upgrade via the phone, via the service provider. But I'm not sure if Samsung does have anything like that. I'd have to take a look into that. I mean, for me, this is still a pretty good phone, the S22 Plus, as far as I know. Still not switching to iPhone yet, but this is not enough for me to get the upgrade. I don't feel like it. I mean, I'm sure if it was free, but I mean, I don't see a whole lot here to make the upgrade quite yet. But it's still a good phone. So they had that, and then they also had some laptops that came out. So they're really going deeper into their laptop side of things, which I'll say, I have an S-Book myself. That's one of their lower end kind of laptops. It works really great, actually, for a few different things. I've got running some stuff in the background here right now. But this is the Galaxy Book 3 Ultra laptop. So this is where they're actually going for something high end. So this laptop, I'm just going to say where it starts out at. $2,400 is where this where it starts out. So it's got a 16-inch AMOLED display, 120 hertz refresh rate. You can get an Intel i9 chip on it. So it's a pretty high-end laptop. Now, are enough people going to want to go to this at that price versus going for like a MacBook Pro or something, or a Dell. I don't know, but it's got some impressive numbers on there. So I'll say that Samsung's definitely making a big push into that side of things. So those were kind of the
prices are going up, huh, Greg, on everything.
everything.
Remember when PCs used to be a lot more affordable? Now it's like they're getting to that MacBook Pro price.
Yeah, at least for that one, for that higher end one. There's still some good lower end, PCs and PC laptops that you can get that won't run that high. But this one's meant to be like a really high end laptop. So again, though, I'll be curious to see how this does head to head with something else that's going to be in that price range. And we'll have to wait to see exactly what the specs are once we get those numbers in. But yeah, that's where Samsung is going with that. So that was kind of the big thing. They didn't have new earbuds. We didn't see a new Galaxy Watch, so maybe we'll get to see those a little bit later on down the line. But that was the main focus, were the new phones and the new laptops that they have. So those were their lineups, and yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. But I will definitely be interested in more specs on those laptops. So that was kind of the big tech event of today. If anybody has any questions, drop them in there. I'll see if I can answer them for you. But I do have a couple other things, Winnie, that I just thought were interesting that I've been meaning to bring up with you that I wanted to talk about. And I've got two of them here. So one of them comes from NVIDIA. And what it is, it's they believe a new way to help out for your live streaming, for your conferences, for your any kind of online meeting that you've got going via video, to keep your eyes focused on the camera. So normally, when people are having meetings, and you and I are used to looking at the camera, but sometimes, if you're doing something, you're kind of looking down, or you're looking around, or you're looking at your screen and not looking at the camera. So it doesn't look like you're actually paying attention to someone. Well, they've come up with an effect that will digitally keep your eyes always focused on the camera. So no matter where you're looking, it's going to, even if you're looking down, the AI will deep fake your eyeballs to be staring at the camera. It's kind of a weird tech. I'm like, I don't know. Does anybody want this? I don't know. I mean, the tech side of it is cool. But that's what they think that people might want. So I don't know. What do you think of this?
I mean, Greg, let's be honest. You and I have interviewed a lot of people on this show and our own shows, respectively. And we've had many guests who are not like, they don't do what we do, right? They're not used to looking at the camera. Speaking of not knowing what to do. But, I do think that this could have that benefit. Yeah. I don't know that I would spend that much effort on it. I feel like it's one of those things where it's a nice to have, but not a necessity. I can't see a lot of people spending a lot of money on this, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're doing a presentation, and you're specifically, leading something, looking into the cameras for that, this could actually help out if you need like quick look at your notes. But
yeah, that's true.
Keep your eyes focused on there.
We're like looking at our script.
Yeah, I know. Staring like, and it's funny. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny. There are some other videos out there too, and I forgot to grab these. But if you look them up, they used this software, some other people did, and rendered it into like old movies like Jurassic Park. And it's really creepy, where they just where somebody's supposed to be talking like right here, and their eyes are just staring right at the camera, right at you. It's a very, very odd. Is it a plug-in or standalone? I believe they're going for this to be a plug-in. That's a very good question as far as how this is actually going to work and purchasing that. But I think that's where they're aiming towards it, to where it would be something you could plug in and use. But you do have to go through their NVIDIA broadcast 1.4. So then it would overlay on top of something else. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think it might get a little bit unnerving, but you're totally right, though. If somebody's never paying attention, maybe this will help them out a lot.
I mean, maybe, where I think it would be great for Greg is like, I just feel like with virtual learning, right? Or let's say you're at a meeting, then like people wouldn't know.
Yeah, I wonder if they could have it where it can dub over if somebody's sleeping and they just have the eyes dubbed over, so it's just staring at the camera the whole time. I feel like some kid's gonna figure out a hack for that, but Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this came out a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to bring it up just because I thought it was so odd looking. It's so strange. So that's one way anyway that NVIDIA is looking to make sure that you can stay focused on your presentations and your meetings.
Right.
So there's that. And then I had one other thing I wanted to bring up, was I mentioned this at the beginning, having to do with robots. If there's some crazy robot, I'm going to talk about it on here. And this one is one of the stranger ones that I've seen. So we've all seen, if you remember Terminator 2 back in the day, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then you had Richard Patrick, I believe is his name. And he, basically the Terminator that could melt down, he turned his arm into a sword, all that stuff, the liquid metal robot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're doing that now.
No way.
To a certain extent. So this is a study. Yeah, there you go. So this is a study from Carnegie Mellon, and then also a university in China, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, where they showcased a robot that they made. It's actually with some magnetic particles that are immersed within gallium. Gallium is a metal that has a melting point of 86 degrees-ish. Oh. So you can heat it up and it'll melt. And they're showing it there being in its little jail cell, and it melts, goes through the bars, and then this is kind of a time-lapsed video of it. And then it'll end up, they drop the temperature back down, and it's able to reform back into its shape, which is crazy to me. I mean, it's just, it really is kind of like that Terminator 2 type of technology, where there you see it, it's slowly forming itself back up into
a little Lego man.
Yeah, into a little Lego man.
Yeah,
this kind of tech is just, right, it's wild. Seeing what they could do with this. So that they mentioned though some of the things, and there are some positive things other than creating a robot that's going to look for John Connor. You've got some specific medical benefits they were talking about, where you could have this be a very small, essentially robot that would be able to
do surgery and then liquefy itself to come out of your veins.
Yeah. I don't know, but it would be basically be able to. They said deliver medication to specific areas because of the magnetic. Like say there's something in your stomach and you need something applied directly to a certain area. You might be able to do it with a metal robot that would be in your body, and applying that if you felt comfortable eating a metal robot. There's that. There's that aspect.
You can't argue against that.
Yeah, right. And then another thing they mentioned was something called a universal screw. So they were saying for specifically like repair work on machinery, or that's places that it's very hard for a person to get into, or would require dismantling something completely. What you could do is you could have this robot melt down, slide through all the cracks, get into wherever whatever needs to be repaired. And I mentioned a screw just as an example. So say a screw popped out deep within a machine, it can go to wherever that is. They can guide it to it, and then it will just liquefy and form into wherever that screw was, then solidify, and boom, it's patched, it's fixed. You've got a brand new screw that just kind of found its way in there. So there are some pretty cool potential use cases. This is a long ways away before we're going to have these running around, but we've got liquid robots now. Robots that can metal liquid robots. It's a crazy world.
This is a crazy world. It's like disturbing, but once you break it down in those specific use cases, I feel it.
Yeah, there are some good use cases for it, but I still can't help but think of Terminator 2. So, excuse me, but yeah. So that was kind of interesting. I just wanted to bring that one out here too. So, pretty fun stuff this week. Interesting things that are out there. But that's why I always want people to also please feel free to send me anything that you all find. If you see something cool, let me know.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and joining us. This was great. That was so much fun information, Greg. In fact, earlier today on Twitter, I actually shared a video. I was channeling my inner Greg, where there was this robot cooking food, and I thought that was the coolest thing too. I need one of those in the kitchen.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. I'm all for the robot chef, the robot butler. Let's bring those in. That's fine. I can use that. Right. But that's about all I have for this week, though. And I mean, there's going to be so much stuff coming up that I'm always excited about. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here with you and talking to everybody. And thanks to everybody for joining us here every week.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in and joining us today. If you think of
Yeah.
anything else that you see online that Greg and I should pay attention to, definitely tag at Greg Nibbler or at Winnie Sun,
Please.
or both of us. And please do us a favor and share this show with someone that you care about on social media. We really appreciate it. And of course, if you tag us, it gives us a chance to properly thank you on the show.
Yeah.
And with that, we're a wrap. We'll see you again next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.